Hi everyone. In this video I want to talk about a way to measure the center of a data set. And there's three different ways that are commonly thought of as being measures of center. One that's probably very familiar to everyone is called the average or the mean. Another way to measure the middle of a data set is by computing something called the median. And the third way that we'll talk about in this video is the mode. So first let's talk about computing the average. To put it in very plain language, to compute the average of a data set, you add up all the numbers that are in it and divide by the number of numbers. So let's have a little toy data set where we play around with this. So here's a small data set that includes just grades on 7 assignments, and I've already computed the total and the average, right? So to compute the average, we need to first add up all the numbers, and if you add up all those grades, you get 63. And then we need to divide by the number of numbers, which was 7. So the average grade on the assignments is a 9. And that's the easy part. The tricky part is when we want to talk about averages and other quantities in general and talk about how those are computed for arbitrary data sets. When we're in that situation, we don't have an actual set of numbers to work with. So we talk about it in abstract terms by using variables. And so I just want to show you with this simple example a little bit about what that can look like. Okay, so here in blue, what I've done is variabilified our data. So the way that we represent the abstract idea of numbers in a data set is by using these x variables with subscripts, right? So in this case, we're talking about a set of 7 different possible values. So if I didn't know what these grades were, I could refer to them as x1, x2, x3, and so on. And as we said, when we're going to compute the average, the first thing we do have to do is find the total. And the way that we denote the total is by this. So this notation we read as the sum of the xi's. This thing is the capital Greek letter sigma. And in mathematics, it's usually used as an abbreviation for the word sum, like S for sum. And the idea with this notation is we're going to sum up all the things that are xi's. And an xi is just anything, all of these variables that stand for values that have x with a subscript. So we're going to just take all those xi's and sum them up. And then to compute the average, we're going to divide by the number of numbers. In this case, the number of numbers was 7. But in general, we may not know the number of numbers that we're talking about in a data set. So our general notation for this is n. That's just going to be the number of numbers in our data set. And after we compute the average, so we take that total and divide by the number of numbers, we get the mean. And the notation for the mean is this x with a bar over it. And we just read this as x bar. Now we can write down a formal formula for what the average or mean is. The mean is equal to the value you get if you sum up all the numbers in the data set and then divide by the number of numbers. You'll often also see this written as 1 over n times the sum of the xi's. So that's the formula for mean. The next value I wanted to talk about is the median. And the median is really just the middle value of the data set. We need to sort the data in increasing order and then find the middle value. So if I write these numbers down in increasing order and then find the middle one, that is going to be the median of my data set. So let me write those numbers down in order. Now that I've written them down in order, I'm going to look for the middle value. And it happens to be that there are 7 values in this data set. And the middle one is 9. So that's the median of this data set. Now, if you have an even number of numbers in the data set, that means that there is no middle number. And in that case, we take the average of the 2 middle numbers. So let's update our data set a little bit and see how an additional value might affect the mean and the median. So we're going to add an 8th assignment. And let's say that 8th assignment, this student got a grade of 2. So well below the average grade that they usually get. How does this affect the mean and the median? So the new median what is that going to be? Well, now our data looks like this when we sort it. To find that new median, we're going to find the two middle values, right? So this data set can be split equally in two parts. The median is going to be the average of those two values. So in this case, it'll be 9 plus 9 divided by 2, which is still 9. So the median is left unchanged by the addition of this new assignment. But what happens to the average now? Let's come back up and look at our table. All right, what we needed to do was sum all the numbers and then divide by the number of numbers. So our sum of the first 7 assignments was 63. If I add in the new assignment with the score of 2, our new total is going to be that 63 plus 2, so that's 65. And our new number of numbers, so our new n, is 8. So that means our new average is 65 divided by 8, which is 8.125. And that's considerably lower than the old average of 9. So what's the lesson here? Well, the median was not changed by this low score on the 8th assignment, but the mean was changed by a lot. You know, the median is not affected by the addition of a data point that's very far from the median. It is resistant to the effect of outliers. The average, however, is not. Okay, so those are the first two ways I wanted to think about measuring the middle of a data set, finding the average or the mean, and finding the median. The last numerical measure I want to make of this data set is by computing something called the mode. And the mode is just the most frequently occurring value in the data set. And that's easy to compute because we can just count up the number of times each of these values occurs in the data set. In this case, the mode would be 9 because there are 3 9s in the data set and all the other numbers only occur once. So if there are multiple numbers that occur the same number of most frequent times, then we say that the distribution is multimodal. In the next video, we'll see how to compute some of these things in Excel.